My name is TCaptainX, and today we're going to cover the top assault rifles in Call of Duty Warzone for Season 4. Now, what's different about this video compared to what you might see for others is that I'm going to back up my claims with stats and also show some clips of these guns in action. Then, of course, we'll show you my recommended attachments for each build. So let's start with my top modern warfare assault rifle, the M13. The M13 is top-notch for a few reasons. First, very little recoil with a very smooth recoil pattern, making it a great option for console players. Plus, the fast fire rate makes it more forgiving than slower shooting weapons if you get off target and miss a few bullets. The biggest downside is its lower damage per mag. With 60 bullets and a very fast fire rate, realistically you're probably only going to be able to get about 2 opponents down per magazine before needing to reload from medium to long range. Surprisingly, the M13 dominates in combined time to kill on TrueAimData.com from about 30 to 50 meters, which I'd argue is a range you're using your AR at quite often, especially on Rebirth Island or Fortune's Keep. So for the M13 loadout, this is going to be your standard long-range build for any Modern Warfare assault rifle. We always go with the monolithic suppressor as this adds range, keeps us suppressed. You're going to always want to go for the barrel that both adds range and recoil control. For this case, it's going to be the Tempest Marksman. I think the Commando foregrip is always your best option for recoil control for the underbarrel. Always go with the largest mag, but never above 60, as usually at that point, it really hurts your aim down sight speed and mobility. And then usually the VLK 3x optic is your go-to choice, but I also like using things like the PBX Holo or the Corp Combat Holo, especially if you have the blue dot unlocked. Next, the best Cold War assault rifle, in my opinion, is going to be the Vargo. The Vargo is another relatively low recoil assault rifle that is very smooth shooting with little to no visual recoil, making it again a great option for console. The only major downside to the Vargo is it does have a bit slower aim down sight speed compared to the rest of our choices today. Although for a long range weapon, this isn't as big of a factor. You can think of it like a slightly slower shooting M13 with just slightly more recoil, but better long range TTKs beyond about 50 meters. I would like to mention though, the XM4 is nearly identical in terms of TTK. However, the XM4 does have a bit more recoil, which is why I ultimately chose the Vargo as the better option for most players. So the Vargo is again going to have our standard long range setup for a Cold War assault rifle, which is going to be the GRU suppressor, or basically the last suppressor attachment, the Task Force barrel, or the last barrel attachment. Both of these are going to add range, help with recoil control. The Spetsnaz grip, also might be called the Field Agent grip for some guns, again helps with recoil. Go with the 60 round mag. Now, if you aren't playing trios or quads, a 45 does shave off a lot of time for your aim down sight speed, and it is a very good option, but very low damage per mag with that. And then lastly, the Axial Arms 3X. And my go-to reticle that I like to use on the Cold War ARs is going to be the Scalpel reticle, which you unlock through Cold War zombies by getting kills with the Axial Arms 3X. Really, really love this reticle. And in case anyone is wondering about the XM4 loadout, this is my build for it here. Now let's get into the Vanguard guns, which really dominate the meta currently. I'm not going to necessarily rank these 1 to 3, as it depends on your skill level, playstyle, and the game modes you play. Let's start with the fastest time to kill options, and I'm actually going to put 2 guns here because I was making this video and it felt wrong not to include both of them. But one I'm going to recommend more for solos, and that's the AS44. This is a gun with a good amount of recoil, so I don't recommend it for the beginner level player, but it absolutely fries at both close and long range at the cost of a very small damage per mag, with its high fire rate and the 50 round mag really being the only viable option for making a long range build. Now the AS44, like I said, does have a lot of recoil, so it's very important we build it out to minimize this. The MX Silencer is pretty much always your go-to choice for a long-range build on a Vanguard gun because it helps with recoil control, range, and keeps us suppressed. You're always going to look for the barrel that says highly accurate and controllable typically, and that's going to help a lot with recoil control, which is going to be the 615 barrel here. I like to go with the hand stop generally because it helps a lot with the vertical recoil. You could also go with the Carver foregrip. Again, the 50 round mag is pretty much the only viable option. The 1640 just have way too much recoil. Lengthen for bullet velocity. I like to go stippled here because the AS44 has a lot of initial kick and it helps with that initial firing recoil. We go with sleight of hand and fully loaded. There really aren't any super great perks options here, so I like to go just with sleight of hand. For the stock, we go with the ZAC 12B Custom because, again, you'll see it helps with that initial firing recoil. And again, this gun has a lot of initial kick. And then usually my go-to optic on the Vanguard guns are going to be the SVT 3-6 optic. Although another great option is the 2.5. If you do have the 3-6 though, I'm not a big fan of the default reticle as it's very small and kind of like hard to see. So I use the duplex crosshair, which I believe, unfortunately, this challenge, I think it only tracks in Vanguard. I think it's bugged, but this is just a lot easier to see and track your opponents at long range with. The next option, which is very similar to the AS44 with only slightly slower TTKs, but a higher damage per mag, and probably my personal favorite for Rebirth or Fortune's Keep currently, is the Nikita AVT. The Nikita also has a considerable amount of recoil and fast fire rate similar to the AS, but 10 more bullets in its magazine. The Nikita is also an excellent sniper support option, which I'll link a video for that class in my top sniper supports if you're interested in it in the description down below. You'll see it dominates close range time to kill like the AS44 and is then neck and neck with many of the other guns beyond about 40 meters. Now the Nikita is a gun that has a lot of horizontal recoil, meaning it does kind of one of these S shapes where it likes to go back and forth. So the key to building this is we're going to make sure we reduce that horizontal recoil, which is why I go with the strife angled underbarrel, because that helps it quite significantly. But then we go with the hatch grip because again, it also is going to help the horizontal. Then lastly, for the stock, I go with the Zac MS because once again, helps with that horizontal recoil control. The Empress 613 barrel is going to be your go-to. Again, we always go MX silencer. We always go lengthened. 60 round drum is going to be our largest magazine, and it also actually helps with recoil control. I go with Perfectionist, which is again going to help with recoil control, fully loaded, and then again that 3-6x optic. If you're a fan of the fast fire rate guns like the M13 but want something with better long range GTKs, the Cooper carbine is absolutely phenomenal currently. Similar to the M13, the biggest downside of the Cooper is its lower damage per mag. The recoil itself is very little, however it does have more visual recoil or reticle shake when shooting compared to the M13. You'll see only the AS44 beats it in terms of long range GTK, so this is absolutely a contender for the title of best AR if you had to give that title out. So again, you're going to see some similarities to the Cooper attachments to the other Vanguard guns. MX silencer, the Cooper custom barrel is going to be that highly accurate and controllable barrel. I think the hand stop is probably your best bet here, although you could also go strife angled, but this gun doesn't really have much horizontal recoil. I like to go polymer grip and then the Cooper 45W because both of those help with that sustained recoil. This gun doesn't have a whole lot of initial kick. It's kind of a pretty constant rate, so I think that sustained recoil attachments are probably your better bet. 60 round drum, lengthened. I think hard scope is your best option here for perks. They nerfed tight grip specifically to the Cooper carbine for some reason, and I think hard scope is better. You actually don't want to use brace if you're using the other attachments that help with that sustained recoil, because if you use an initial firing recoil attachment, it actually counteracts something that has a sustained recoil bonus. So it's kind of a weird concept, but you want to stick with hard scope if you're going with those other attachments. Fully loaded, and then again that 3-6x optic. And lastly, we have the NZ41, which even after multiple nerfs is still the most popular assault rifle in Call of Duty Warzone for the simple reason of its extremely low recoil and excellent long range TTKs. If you play Caldera, I'd say the NZ is definitely your best bet since it has much higher damage per mag, meaning plenty of ammo to down opponents at extremely long ranges, or if you play Fortune's Keep and Rebirth, you can take out an entire squad theoretically without needing to reload. The close range TTKs are very bad for the NZ, but beyond about 40 meters, which is where you typically use your AR, it absolutely dominates. Now the NZ is a slower rate of fire gun, so the 50 round mag is actually plenty, which is why it ends up having some of the best damage per mags out of all the guns we've talked about. Again, MX silencer, the Orb Weaver 360 barrel is going to be your best bet. It used to be the MK1 burst you could use and then toggle to full auto, but this was nerfed. It has a lot more recoil, and the Orb Weaver 360 is going to be a much better choice. This is a gun that does, as you stay on it likes to do a little bit of a horizontal it kind of veers off. So I think the horizontal recoil attachments are a better option here, which is why I go with the strife angled and hatched grip. Lengthened again per usual. This gun doesn't have that much of an initial kick, which brace does help with, but I don't really think any of these other ones are that useful. Maybe you could go like acrobatic or frenzy, but I just stick with brace. Fully loaded, I think the E-Pack is your best option for recoil control. And then lastly, again, the 3-6x optic. Now, I do have a few honorable mentions to talk about before we end here, and I left these out just because they have a little bit slower TTKs at long range, but almost all these have very low recoil and are still very, very solid options. First, we've got the Automaton here, fast fire rate, kind of like an M13 again with even more ammo. Then we've got the Bar, only a 40 round mag, although it's a little bit slower shooting, very easy to control. I know the remove stock seems weird. Trust me, it actually helps with your recoil. Then we've got something like the KG M40, slower TTKs at long range, but very easy to control. And then lastly, something like the STG 50 round, although this did get nerfed, and I think ultimately the NZ is still a better option, but if you don't have anything leveled up, the STG is still a solid option. Although personally, I will say I actually like to run the 45 round with something like this, and a lot more recoil, but it's got pretty solid TTKs if you've got good recoil control. So I'm gonna leave a link to True Game data here in the description where it'll have all of these loadouts saved that you can go and look at if you wanna compare a little bit more in depth yourself. We're gonna be covering the top SMGs very soon, so if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on that. Otherwise, guys, I hope you found the video helpful. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next one.